Okay. So Dr. Hill Gemara, Rish Lakish said that how does he know that Talmid Chacham don't eat Shmira because of the pasuk Esperem Michael Yirbun. I will count, and Rish Lakish judgments, I will count the mitzvahs of the Talmid Chachamim, and they're even more than sand. Sand is what protects the beaches from being overrun by the oceans. So if sand could protect the landmass from being overrun by the oceans, kol shekain the mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim of tzaddikim shehem merubin, they're even more than chayil hayam. Kol shekain they should be made on people. So Rabbi Yochanan said we have another pasuk that shows that Talmid Chachamim are their own fortresses and they don't require external security. He says ani chayma v'shadai k'migdalos, and we dash ani chayma zutayr v'shadai k'migdalos elu Talmidei Chachamim. Rish Lakish Savar, the reason why Rish Lakish didn't use this as a source for Talmidei Chacham not requiring security is because Kedidarish Rava. Ani Chayma Zu Knesses Yisrael, V'Shadai K'Migdalos, Elu Batech Nesios, Ubatim Droshes. Rav Nachman, and I believe the Bach changed it to Rav Chanon, Bar Rav Chisda, Rama Kaga Arabon. He did put the burden of taxes on the Rabbanon as well. He made them participate in taxes like everybody else. Amalei Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Avarta Adaraisa Va'adanavi Va'adiksuve. You were over on the Deraisa, you're over on Divrei Nevi'im, and you're over on the Viksuvim. And I'm going to show you from all three places where we learn we should not be charging a Talmud Chacham. The Chassidut says, Av Chayvev Amim Kol Kedoshav V'Yodecha. So this is in Hazinu. Amar Moshe Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shel Olam, Afilu B'Shah, She'ata Mechavev Amim. So Av Chayvev Amim, even when you're showing favor to the nations of the world, meaning She'ata Matzav Lahem Panecha Lashlitan Al Panecha, Rashi says. They have control, they have power over us. We're subordinate to the nations of the world. Nevertheless, called Kedosha V'Yu B'Yodecha, Rashi says, Shall Yisrael B'Yodecha Heim L'Shoimrim. The Ribono Shel Olam is still watching out on its Kedoshim no matter what. V'Heim Tuku L'Raglecha. What does it mean, V'Heim Tuku L'Raglecha? Zokt Rabbi Yosef, Tani Rabbi Yosef, Elu Talmidei Chachamim, Shemekatzim Ragleim, they break their feet get ground down from all the mileage that they put on them because they're running to learn Me'ir Le'ir, Umi Medina LeMedina, Lil Moy Torah, to learn Torah. Somebody mentions, I believe maybe the Marsha mentions that we learned in the Mishnah, how long does one have to live in a city until he's considered a citizen? And now the needs of the city fall on his shoulders as well. I think it's 12 months. These people, the Talmidei Chacham, they're nomads. They don't stay anywhere very long because they're all moving from place to place, from yeshiva to yeshiva, running to learn. So therefore, they're never anchored in any place for 12 months. So they shouldn't. Besides their Talmidei Chacham status, they don't even ever get a status of a resident. Yisa midav reisecha. What does that mean? Yisa midav reisecha. They're running around from place to place. Lisa v'litain b'debraisav shalmokim, to handle in the words of the Ribono Shel Olam. So there's a pasuk in the Torah that says that they have protection and they shouldn't be subject to contributing to the security taxes of a city. At the Navi, where do you see this from the Nevi'im? T'chsiv gam ki yitnu b'goyim. Even though I gave you into the hands of the goyim, ato akapsein, I am going to gather you in. V'yichelu ma'at. Let me read the pasuk inside so that I don't butcher it. Gam ki yitnu b'goyim ata kapseim. Can't see what it says over here. V'yichelu ma'at mimasa melech sor. So let's see how the Gemara darshans this pasuk. Gam ki yitnu b'goyim ata kapseim v'yichelu ma'at mimasa melech sor. V'amar Ula. Ula said, "Pasuk zeh v'loshen hara misnem." So the pasuk pshat is, even when Hashem will give us over into the nations, I'm going to gather you up and I'll lighten up the load upon you from carrying the burden. But we're darshaning it v'loshen hara. What does tanu rabbanan mean? It means to learn, right? Tanu. So ki yitnu bagoyim means itanu kulu. So gam ki yitnu bagoyim, if all of Klal Yisrael are learned, they're orangutan learning, they learn Torah, then ata kapse, then I will gather them in, I will say them. The ma'at mehem, if only part of them learn, not all of them learn, I'm still going to help them.
No, I'm sorry too. I don't see what happens. I was gonna have you, yeah, because you didn't look at the phone. Yeah, have you, to your birth. Okay.
Okay. Zog to Gemara weiter. Other ksuvi. Where do you see this in ksuvim? The chsivit says, "Menada valu v'hala, loy shalut lemir malayim," and this is when the king, which king was it? Is one of the lineage of the Yavesh. Let me just look. Rashi tells us exactly which king it was. The Yavesh. The Yavesh commanded Pachas that although you're collecting taxes from everybody, you shall not collect any taxes from the Anshe Knesset Hagadolah. So they were relieved from those taxes. And I'll just read the pasuk inside, the whole pasuk to Ezra. Ulechaim Moedin Tikol Kanaya Velevaya Zamaraya, the singers, Taraya and Sinai. These are all the people who are working in the Beis Hamikdash who polche Beis Alakah. It's not clear. Dina minida veloy v'halach. Those are three types of taxes. Lo shalit lemir malayin. You should not charge them these three taxes. What are these three taxes? It's amazing. If we had to list off today the taxes that Talmud Chacham is not responsible to pay, it would take more than the whole Gemara of Basra to list off how many taxes. They had gone to three taxes. Can you imagine if we only had three taxes? We would be living large. They had three taxes, and that's also in like a hostile regime. So what does Rashi say? Menas HaMelech is mageves masim shein matilin tomid al bnei bedina. These are regular taxes. I'm not sure what that means. Arnoina, Rashi tells us, are yisurei tvoy subemis. That's like income tax, right? Every year, whatever you produce, you pay a tenth to the king. Could you imagine that was the tax rate, 10%? So let's see the Gemara inside. Elaborates on what these taxes are. So minada beloy v'halach l'shalach l'mir maleon zok the Gemara v'mar b'Yehuda minada zu minas hamelech. So Rashi, that's a standard tax. I'm not sure what that means. Malu zu kesef golgolta. That's the head tax per person. V'halach zu arnoina, which was similar to an income tax. Tosfos says it was a different type of tax. V'halach zu arnoina pirish b'kontras iser behemoth u'tfur. V'rach pirish. That's not what it means. It means aruchas doiroin l'shiltain ha'over mimakom l'makom. Whenever the ruler would come through your city, everybody would have to chip in to present him with a gift. That was also a cost. So nice like kalir ve'ir arucha. Pirushay miloshin ve'yave halach leish hashir. I don't even know what the pasuk is because I don't know my navi, which is a bezoin that I don't know navi. We're going to get to that in a second. How big of a bezoin is it if someone doesn't know his navi? If someone doesn't know the chaf forum? So we'll see in a second. Rav Papa Rami Kari. I guess we should stop here for a minute. We're talking about security. Nowadays, we don't find such a thing that the Talmidei Chacham don't pay tax. So the Ramah speaks about halach l'maisa. It says the only type of Talmidei Chacham that are being referred to that don't have to pay any tax at all are people who are Tairasim and Nosan. That we don't have those nowadays. We're talking about someone like Reb Shimon ben Yochai who didn't stop learning for a second, right? Everybody else who have a typically normal life, no matter how big of a Talmid Chacham somebody might be, even a Rav, Tairasim doesn't means that there's not a nanosecond wasted on anything other than learning. So nobody today qualifies.
By the way, Yosy, as a aside, maybe I'm going to sell it in Genevim this coming year, but there was a tax book from Meshbuz about the Baal Shem Tov, and in it said that he doesn't have to pay tax, that he was putter from tax.
Law, but it's not the Gemara's law.
Yeah, but do you see even there they inherited that the Talmidei Chachamim don't have to pay tax.
It's also people who do most of their business in cash.
That's a different story.
Well, it says I don't know. Chazal say Va Beis Yosef Lakash. So it says Yosef works off cash. So Yosef shouldn't. Anyone that's named Yosef shouldn't have to pay tax. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the CRA would react to that. We should ask for the opinion. Maybe not. Maybe not. They might want to find more background on the petitioner. Yeah. Okay. So that's the Dermosa. So it's not, this whole thing is not relevant nowadays. But the Chazonish had an interesting shaila. What if everybody in the city is Terasim Nosai? I guess if you live in Bnei Brak, you can clear such a shaila. So nobody has to pay. So you're supposed to be Soimich Alanes. I ain't Soimich Alanes. Yes, you have the psukim, the tzaddikim are protected, but you also don't ain't Soimich Alanes. So the Chazonish says, if everybody in the city is Terasim Nosan, everybody has to equally shoulder the burden. The Gemara is referring to a case where in most normal places, the people are not Terasim Nosan, and then you have one or two people, or a small fraction of people that are Terasim Nosan. There's such a no one pays. So he asks, what if there's a city where most of the people are Terasim Nosan, and there are 3 Talmid Chacham that are big Talmid Chacham, but they're not Terasim Nosan. Now they have to burden all the taxes for the whole city. So they're not. So I guess there's a cheshbon of how it's worked out. Nowadays we're much more generous than the Gemara's times. Nowadays, even people who learn Torah but are not Torah Nosan, not only don't they pay taxes, the government supports them. Although now it changed. But that's how it used to be. Is the people who are Talmid Chacham, people who are learning, the government supported them. I wonder if this whole concept that students, even in the secular world, get subsidies and get help and breaks. Maybe it all stems from the Gemara's halacha or from the Navi already. You see, it was baked into people for generations that scholars don't have to shoulder as much as the financial burden as the rest of the people. Zok Gemara, Papa Rami Kari Chadita. He forced Talmid Chachamim to pay when they were digging, not Talmid Chacham, Ayasmi, when they were digging a new well so that there would be water for the city, for the village. He also made the Yisoimim chip in for something like that. Amar Shisha Bereder Avidi Papa, how could you do that? Because Vidilma loy midva. They might spend the money, they might dig, and it will not be a good investment because they won't find water and it will not be successful, and you're not allowed to take from Nichsa Yisoimim if you're going to damage them. Amalai, true. So Mishkos the Kilaminai. We take it from them as a deposit, we put it into escrow. And he midville, if we succeed and it's a successful dig and we produce a well, we use the money that the Yisraelim gave as part of the contributions to pay for it. If it doesn't work out, you give it back. Everybody else who has to contribute to such a fund, if it doesn't work, they're moichel the money. They know you have to dig. You don't always make it. But Yisraelim Katanim who are not b'lei mechila, we would have to give the money back. Amar Yuda, hakoil iglegapa. Iglegapa are security for the city. Rashi teaches l'sharei choymois ha'ir lahatzav and telosois. And Rashi brings a precedent where you see that that's what it means. Even Yisraelim have to contribute to that. Aval Rabbanan lo trichin and terusa. Once again, the Rabbanan don't need smira. Hakoil lekari pasi. Rashi says that's to dig a well to drink water from. Afilu mirabanan, because the Rabbanan have to drink as well. That we say that the Rabbanan have to contribute to the fund that is digging the well. That's if it's a fund and we're hiring a well company. But if the people themselves go with their shovels and they actually dig on their own, Rabbanan la b'nei mefek b'chluzininu. Rabbanan aren't laborers. They can't go out and dig a well. Do you remember Mr. Weisberger and Nosson Farkas is not Nosson, the other Farkas is father-in-law? I'm sorry? Reuben's father-in-law. So Mr. Farkas, we used to take, Mr. Weisberger, we used to take him every year to Tush because he davened in Tush every Yom Kippur, and he grew up in Cheder with the Tush Rebbe. They were in the same class of Cheder. So he said that when they were in Auschwitz, everybody had labor to do. They had to do heavy labor. So of course they didn't want to let the Rebbe do the labor. So they said, Rebbe, no, we're going to do it for you. And the Rebbe said, B'shumei noifin. B'shumei noifin. Now, there's no way I'm going to relax here while you guys are busting yourself. I'm going to do my own labor. They told the Rebbe, no, this isn't because I've covered for you. You have two left hands. You mess up whatever you touch. And then we're going to get beaten up because it wasn't done. Just sit back and we'll take care. That's what he used to do. Zog Gemara weiter. Rebbe was very wealthy, and there were, in the hunger years, his benevolence supported everybody around. So Rebbe Pasach Oitrois Bishani Betzuras in the years of hunger. But he didn't let anybody take. He was selective with whom he allowed to benefit off his benevolence. Amar, he said, Yikantu Bali Mikra, Bali Mishnah, Bali Gemara, Bali Halacha, Bali Agoda. Anybody who's learned in any which way, they could come and they could benefit from what I'm offering. Aval Amaya Aretz al Yichnusu. I don't want an Amor to get any penny from me. So right off the bat, the Mefarshim tell us this was not a case of Sekanas Nefashos. Sekanas Nefashos, you have to help everybody. But this was just to alleviate the difficulty. He was most concerned to take care of the Talmid of Chacham. And even that might sit a little bit uncomfortable to some people, but we'll get to the Marshal soon. So what happened was Dochak Rabbi Yonason ben Amram, who was a Talmud of Rebbe's, Benichnas, but he must have disguised himself because he didn't want to take money in the schus of his learning. So Amaloi, Rebbe Parnaseni, Rebbe, give me Parnas, I need money, I need food. Amaloi, so Rebbe asked him, Beni, my son, Karisa, did you learn Tanakh? So Amaloi, love, no. Shanisa, did you learn Mishnayos? Amalei, love. So Rebbe told him, so why should I be furnished? You're Namaritz. Amalei, his Talmud told him, disguised, Parnaseni kekelev ka'ayret. Give me Parnasa just like the Rabboni Shaloilam is mefarnes a dog and a raven. Rashi says the dog doesn't get fed too often, and because of that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it that they have a very slow metabolism. And im kozer, they don't gain weight. I wonder why. I always thought it was my metabolism. Rashi says, and the Oirev, we know, does not have Rachmanis on its children. Like we say, they cry to Hashem to Bnei Oirev because their parents don't take care of them. Rashi v'gabi Oirev ksiv l'vnei Oirev sheir kro l'v'sha Oirev achzor yalbanav. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mazmin lam yutushim mitoich tzayason v'oichlum. Hashem finds them food, although maybe not so appetizing. So he said that shouldn't be any worse than the Kelev and the Oirev. So Parnasei. So Rebbe, in fact, gave him Parnasa. Basra the Nofik, after he left with his food, Yosef Rebbe the Kametztayer. Rebbe felt bad. The Yomar, and he said, Oy li, woe is to me, Shenasati piti la Amor. I gave my bread to an Amor. Amar lefan of Reb Shimon bar Rebbe. Reb Shimon bar Rebbe told him, Shema, how do you know this is Taman Namaretz? Shema Yonason ben Amram Talmidachu. Maybe this person who this was disguised, and in fact he was your Talmud. He never wanted to have any benefit from the Torah that he learned. So he didn't want to tell you that he learned Torah, because then he would be benefiting from the fact that he learned Torah. But they checked up on this disguised person, and they found, in fact, that it was Talmud. After that, Amar Rebbe Yikansu Akar. Let everybody come, because maybe everyone's being a Talmud Chacham and they're concealing it. But Lamaisa Rebbe did not want to be mefarnish those who are not Talmid Chachamim. Rabbi L'Tamei, the Amar Rabbi, why didn't he want to? Because he said, "Ain't per honest bala olam ela b'shvil amayoretz." You know why this whole thing happened to us? Why we're in a situation where people are struggling? That's all because of the Amaratim. So I'm not going to give them parnasa when they were the ones who caused this difficult situation in the first place. Where do you see that it's the Amaratim that caused these financial strains? Kahu de make kalila the shadi atferia. We said earlier that sometimes the melech would require that they buy him a gift. So they wanted they made the people of Tveria have to pay for some gift that the king wanted. Also the Kamei de Rebbe. So the Amaratim came to Rebbe, who normally relieved the Talmid Chacham from these type of taxes. They told him, let them pay their fair share. Right? Why should they be exempt? If we have to pay, they have to pay. Rabbi said, I'm sorry, they don't have to pay. Talmidei Chacham don't have to pay. They told them, if that's the case, Arukina, we're going to run away. Why should we shoulder the burden? We'll move to a different place where we'll only have to pay our fair share, and we won't have to be supporting those parasites. Amalei, Rabbi said, Aruku shall go. Arku Palgayon. So actually, half of these Amaratim went away. You know what that does? Because that doesn't relieve the cost. Now there's the same tax burden, but there's only half the amount of ratepayers, right? That's what's happening in New York and California. Everyone's running away. So they still have the burden, but they don't have the ratepayers. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I noticed that something happened. No, we didn't. That lost. So this starts off by itself. Okay? I was wondering. I thought something happened on the screen. I didn't have what it was. Okay, Zok to Gemara. So what happened? Arka Balgayon. But we know what happened. The little Palga. The king said, "Oh, okay, you lost your citizens. I'm going to drop the requirement to that." So that clearly showed that. That clearly showed that it was clear that the Talmidei Chacham would not have put on a bigger burden. So also on the Palga, now the remaining 50 came, Kamed Rebbe, Amalei Leis Rabbanan Badan. Even the half that we have to pay, because the burden was reduced by 50%, the Rabbanan should pay their fair share. Amdullah. So they threatened, Arukinu, we're going to go away, and the only people left are going to be Talmidei Chacham. Aruku, they left. He said, go. Arku Kulu, they all left. Pashahu Koives. There was one Koives there was a dry cleaner. There was one dry cleaner who got stuck literally holding the bag. Shajua Koives. So now they said all of this burden falls on the shoulders of the Koives. Orek Koives. The Koives says, there's no way I'm going to be footing the entire tax burden of this city. And he disappeared. Haka Kalila. The king said, okay, if it's only Talmidei Chachamim, I'm not asking for anything at all. So I'm a Rebbe. So this illustrates quite clearly Isam changed per anis because you see the moment all the Amoritz left, the whole tax burden evaporated. So therefore he didn't want to give. So this story is screaming Darshani. So as an aside, the Rashash says there's a niflitic azach that we need to extract from this Gemara. And that is, people like making fun of the B'nai Torah. This is the Rashash talking. That, yeah, they know Lomdus, they know Gemara, they know Reb Kivegers, but they don't know Navi, they don't know Tanakh. I love saying over a story about a father was looking for a yeshiva for his son, and he took his son to a yeshiva for a fair, and he loved the yeshiva. The Bacham learned stock was a very good place, and he wanted to send his son there, and the yeshiva very much wanted this boy. This was a top boy. But the father told the yeshiva, I'm very hesitant to send my son there. So he says, why? Why? We have a good yeshiva here. He says, nobody in the yeshiva knows Tanakh. Nobody knows Tanakh. He says, what are you talking about? We're Bekim in Tanakh. Ask me any pasuk in all of Tanakh, and I'll tell you exactly where it is. So the father, who was into Tanakh, picked some remote pasuk in Ezra. He said, that's Pashas. That's Bavakama, Daf Lamed Gimel, Lamed Beis. So Dr. Rishash, you can't look down on it. Why is that? Because let me ask you a question. Rebbe asked him as follows. Karisa. And he said no. So if he didn't even know Chumash and Tanakh, why would he ask if he learned Mishnayos? The teretz is, it was very normal that somebody might have learned Mishnayos, somebody might have learned Gemara, but still never learned Chumash and Tanakh. You see, even in those days, they had the same problem. Because otherwise, once it was like Karisa, he should have known. I obviously didn't do anything else. Elamai, he could have been a master Talmud Chacham, but he didn't do Tanakh. That's what the Rishash extracts out of this Gemara. So the guy could send his son to that yeshiva. Okay, so that's the number one thing. The other thing is, it's very funny what's going on over there. So there's he didn't want to be Amaratzim, and Rabbi Yonison's taina was, be mafanish me like a kelev and an oiriv. So the Mashal says something very fascinating. The halacha is, in a shnei b'tzuris, when there's a problem with parnasa, you're not supposed to have relations. You're not supposed to have children because it puts a burden on anybody. Therefore, you're not supposed to have relations. Like in the Teva, it was also to have relations, right? Number one. And number two is you have to tone down what you're taking from the world. You have to be more modest about things and not live large, even though you could afford to. Rather, you got to be helping other people. The problem was Amaratim didn't do that. Amaratim, Yes, they would say maybe a kapitel tehillim in the morning because we say kapitel tehillim for eating the next roll, but they weren't so overtaken by it, and therefore they would live their normal lives. So, and it was that reason why Rebbe said this comes la'olam. It's because you guys don't take it seriously. The Talmid Chacham take it very seriously. They want to shoulder the burden. They refrain from extras. They don't have relations. They do what they're supposed to do, but Amaratim don't. And therefore, they're contributing to this. I'm definitely not going to be helping them. So what did Rabbi Yosy Ma'amim say? Those are the only two animals in the Teva that had relations. The Medrash tells us. And Afal Pikain, Noach supported them. So that was a time that you should support us anyway. Frektim Ashah, Chum had relations as well in the Teva it's brought down. So how come the Gemara didn't say Parnaseni Kekelev Ukechum? The Teretz who said Noach was Mefanas Chum. Chum was an able-bodied person. Maybe he was Mefanas himself in the Teva. But from the Erev and the Zeh, from the Kelev and the Erev, you see even people who are contributing to the problem still have to be helped. I don't know if they're entitled to be helped, but they're helped. You see, Noach helped them, the Rebbeinu Shalom helps them, and therefore, Rebbe, you should help us as well. Okay, Bavalti. Zok to Gemara weiter. How long do you have to live in a city where now you have to shoulder the burden of tax? We said yesterday, imagine nowadays, only owners have to pay tax. Only owners pay property. If you don't own, if you rent, you don't pay property tax. That's probably why our taxes are so high. In those days, even renters had to pay tax, right? Once you're there for 12 years, you have to pay tax. So could you imagine the reason why we vote in these horribly liberal governments that jack up our property taxes to insane levels is because all of the ratepayers, all the landlords, all the tenants, all the rent payers who aren't impacted by it, they're voting for them. Could you imagine if you would be able to bill back any tax to your tenant, your residential tenant, not about commercial, to your residential tenant? Suddenly, all of these lowlifes would be voted out of office so fast they wouldn't know it hit them because now the tenants have to pay. But they're busy creating these class wars. The rich have to pay their fair share. They're killing us. So I hold that we have to make a new movement that renters who are in the city more than 12 months, that should be I'm going to run for mayor, and my motto is going to be that everyone who lives in the city more than 12 months has to pay, and I won't even get 1% of the vote. But I'll get a lot of support from the apartment owners. Zok to Gemara. Urmini. How do you pronounce it? Hachamaris? It means a caravan of donkeys. How Chameres? Chameres, Vagamelas, Hoiveres, Mimakim Lamakim. You have a moving caravan. What happened is they moved through a city that was an Ir Nidachas. Now, an Ir Nidachas means Roy, the people did Avodah Zarah. Normally, when someone does Avodah Zarah, he gets skila. But in the Ir Nidachas, they don't get skila. They get herek. They're killed with a cherev. And another thing about an Ir Nidachas is if a person gets skila for doing Avodah Zarah, his money goes to his Yerushalayim. But in an Ir Nidachas, all of the money that belongs to anybody in the Ir Nidachas gets destroyed, gets burnt. So here you have a wandering, a moving circus, and they move from place to place. The Lana B'Soicha, their mazel is the night that they spent in this city, it became an Ir Nidachas. Now they also did Avodah Zarah. They're guilty. They did Avodah Zarah just like everybody else in the city. Nevertheless, we don't treat them like members of the Ir Nidachas. Hein v'skila umamoin and polit, and their money is saved because it's not considered the money of the Ir Nidachas. But if they're there only a mere 30 days, not a year like our Mishnah says, then hein b'sayif umamoin ovad, just like the rest of the Ir Nidachas. So it's fair. Our Mishnah says to be considered someone from the city, you have to live there for 12 months. But Lagabi Ir Nidachas, it's only 30 days. Amareva lakasha, hol of masa, hol yisuve masa. It depends what you need. In order to be mechayiv tax, you have to be a ben masa. You have to be a citizen. You have to be a citizen. For a citizen, you need to be there 12 months. By Ir Nidachas, the Torah doesn't say kill all of the citizens of the city. The Torah says you should kill kol yoshveha, all those who are living in it. To be a yoshev, it's enough if you're there for 30 days. Hold yisuv masa. Kidatanya hamudur hano me ansheir. What if someone says I'm not going to have a no from anybody in this particular city? So who is considered a member of that city from whom I cannot have a no from? Anyone who's there for 12 months, he's considered Anshe or Ir, and I may not have enough of him. But what if someone says, I will not have any enough from my Yoshver, from anyone who lives in that city? There, anyone who's in the city for 30 days, you're not allowed to have enough of him. So you see clearly the distinction between a Yoshev Ir and a Ben Ir. Are you telling me that any civic burden that you have is only set upon you after you're there 12 months? But Tanya, I'll show you there are certain burdens that are upon people long before 12 months. For instance, Tamchui was a food collection that was done daily and that was also distributed daily because food is needed for people who are very poor. Once you're there for 30 days, you have to contribute to that. They're anim are better off. They don't literally need their daily food, but they do need a boost of cash from time to time. So to be mechuyev to take care of that you have to be there for 3 months. Now, a tamchui is given not only to aniyeh or ir, that tamchui is distributed to any ani that's there. So I guess that's why with a shorter time being there, you'd be mechuyev to contribute. But kupa is given only to aniyeh of oisha ir. Shisha luxus, there are anim who have money for food, but their clothing are tattered. They need money for clothing. To contribute to the clothing gemach, you have to be there for 6 months, and to contribute to bury people in the city that die, tisha l'kvura. But shnei matzah l'pasa yeir. But for the security, it's 12 months. You're right. So it's not a steer. We're talking about what makes you a citizen of a city. Like I'll be paying for security, and this Mishnah or this Brisa agrees with us that it's 12 months. Of course, there are other things where the Chiyuv would come sooner. We take from everybody for security. Why? The Rabbanon and the Terusa are the same theme that we've had. Amar Papa, Lushura, Ulaparsha, Ulatarzina, Afilu Miyasmi. What are these things? Shura Rash just Tikkun HaChaima. Parsha is a security guard that goes around the city. A, to make sure there's no breaches. But B is to generally inspect to make sure that there's no repairs required. And Tarzina, Shomer Klizan Shel Bnei Ir. They used to have a weapons room near the entrance of the city, so that if they were being attacked, everyone came there to get their weapons as they left the city to defend the city. So these 3 things, the Yisayimim have to contribute to. Avor Rabban Eloi, Shrichen Terusa, Kol the Milsa, the Islu Anomine, anything, any service that you benefit from, Afilu Miyasme, you take even from Yisayim. Rabba Rama Tzedakah Yasme, the Vei Bar Merion. The Yisayimim of Bar Merion, he made them give tzedakah, which technically they wouldn't have to do. So the question is why? Because they don't have benefit from that. Amar la'abai v'tanei Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda ein poskin tzedakah l'Yisayimim afilu l'pidyon shvuyim, which is we're soon going to see is a much more important type of tzedakah. Amar le, true, but ano lach shevinu ka'avidna. Baruch Hashem, their estate has plenty of money, and their father was always sitting oivanun by all the parliament meetings, and when all the Rebbe's came to town, and the Shivas came to town, they got a seat in Mr. Heider's house, not even in the backyard. And now you're going to keep them as outsiders, and maybe their toes will get run over by some gvir driving his car over them. That's mamish terrible for them. So it's to give them status. We include them in all of these collections, to make them feel like they're still somebody's. They didn't become nobodies. Zok Gemara, Ifra Hormuz was Ime de Shvur Malka. She was the mother of Shvur Malka, and Shadra Arnika de Dinri Lakamed Reb Yosef. She sent him money. She was not Jewish, and she sent him money. Amra, and she said, I want this money earmarked Lahava mitzvah Rab. I want it to be for a great mitzvah. So Yosef Reb Yosef Kama my mitzvah Rabbah. What is a mitzvah Rabbah that would qualify so that I could use this money for what it was earmarked for? Amr le Abayim and the Tani Rab Shmuel by Yehuda and Poskin Tzedakah al Yisayim. I feel a pidyon shvuyim. So it sounds like pidyon shvuyim is greater than every other tzedakah. Shmamina that pidyon shvuyim is mitzvah Rabbah. Now Tosfos in Amarav asked a simple kasha: how was he able to take money from a goy? How were you allowed to help out? The Gemara says, how could you help out a guy and giving him a schos of helping him give tzedakah that money shouldn't be rejected. So Tosfos says at the end that it was because of Shalom Malchus. He couldn't reject it. So if you could reject it, then why do you have to reject it? But in this particular case, if he would say we don't want your money, it would create relationship problems with the community, and that's why he took it. So he had to find a place to give it to. So he gave it to Pigeon Shvuyim, but if I'm not mistaken, you're not allowed to take it for a Yid. I believe Tosfos says even the Pigeon Shvuyim was for Goyim. So right, Tosfos says over here, the Kibbutz Shalom Malchus, V'chivan she'amar loy, she'amart lo, she told him, Litin l'mitzvah rabba, lo yahevcher lachalkem la'niyah v'tkachavim, the also licked the daf of riyos, afil dash lo v'tkachavim, so al Gnevis dash, he wasn't allowed to give it anywhere. Therefore, he gave it, therefore what he did is Tosfos says here, he gave him for, he gave it to bail out, even the Pigeon Shvuyim was for Goyim, I believe. Hachanami Padabu Rabbi Yosef Shivuye Oivdei Kachavim. So he used it for Pigeon Shvuyim, but to be paid a Shvuye Oivdei Kachavim. Zok Tehei L'Gemar Vayter. So that's how you see that Pigeon Shvuyim is a mitzvah rabbi. I'm sorry? He wasn't allowed to let me do Goyim. Give it to Goyim? Right. Let's look at Tosfos inside. Maybe I'm reading Tosfos wrong. Tosfos says he couldn't give it to Aniyim. Tosfos, you can't give it to Aniyim because that would be Gnevis Taf. So Tosfos the beginner Rava Aniyim T'chavim Hachanami Poder Behu Rabbi Yosef Shviyav T'chavim. Of Miyol Latrich Lach it only distracted like the Pirsha Kuntrus. The Rava the Kibbutz Shalom Malchus, he took it out Shalom Malchus. The Chivin She'amar Lalita in Lamitzah Rabba Lehayav Shalachalchem Laniyav T'chavim. He couldn't give them Laniyav T'chavim. The also Ligna Das Abriyos. I feel that's Shalom T'chavim. So it's Aval Moist Hamischalchem Laniyim ain't Kenan Gnevis Das the Inunami Yodi to Yisrael were giving Lefarnas son. So that's giving him to a goy. Oh, sorry, I didn't see the Maram. So the Maram explains that what? To free Jewish. Okay, so again, the Pashas are reading Tosfos doesn't say that, but it could be the Maram explains Tosfos better, and I did not see the Maram. So thank you. So the article read down from the Maram in Tosfos that he would use it for him. Okay, Shkoich, I'll have to look at the Maram. Zok Gemar Vayter. Amar le Rabba le Rabba Bar Mori. Mina Hamilsa. Where do we know this from? The Amar Rabbanon, the Pigeon Shvuyim Mitzvah Rabbi. Where do we get it from? Amalei, the Chsivit says, when they ask you, where should we go? So this is the Navi saying, Hashem tells the Navi, they're going to ask where to go, because I think Hashem is throwing them out of Eretz Yisrael. Asher lamoves lamoves, asher lacherev lacherev, asher larav larav, asher l'shvi l'shvi. Now, this shtickle Gemara is going to be very sad to learn, because unfortunately, this is what Klal Yisrael is going through right now. So it says as follows. Everything mentioned later in this pasuk is worse than the one before. So Mavis is the best of the problems that people are going to suffer, but it gets worse and worse. So Nachama, natural death is of course much better than being killed by a sword. I have a pasuk to illustrate that, and I have a svara. Someone who dies of natural causes, his body's intact. The baby's a makra, we say halal. Yakar bein Hashem, hamavsal chasida. Who gets natural death? The chasidim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav hunger is kosher mecharev is even worse than sword. Someone who dies of hunger is suffering so much more. Because we said in Eicha, it was better to be killed by a sword than to suffer from hunger. And Shevi Rachman Letzlon Kashem Ekula. Being captured is worse than everybody. The Chulu Isnube. Rashi says your captors can do all of these things to you. You might say that if someone who's captured might live. The Marsha says being in a strange environment under captivity is death itself, and most people don't survive that, even if they're not killed by their captors. Just being in that horrible environment will hasten their death very quickly. On Klal Yisrael, and release all of the hostages very quickly. more Israeli soldiers were killed yesterday. So we have to daven to the Rebbeinu Shalom that you should have Rahman on us, and everyone should come home. We should pidyon shvuim. We should all be zoichet to pidyon shvuim from the Rebbeinu Shalom b'kar mam. Tanu Rabbanan. Kuba shel tzedakah nigvis b'shnayim. When you're collecting tzedakah, one person alone shouldn't collect. You should have two people together. Umischalekes b'shloisha. The Ayv said Rechmunis got. But there's only one Chaim here. Zok the Gemara, you're going to see this halacha does not apply to Chaim here. We're going to soon see the reason why you have to. Every email. But when it's distributed, you need three people to decide who's royal to get it. So it's not misappropriated. Nigvis b'shnayim sheim oisin shroris ala tzibur. This nigvis means the garbage tzedakah where you could force someone to pay. When you could force somebody to pay, when you're forcing someone to pay, that needs two people. That needs two people. But when you're asking for people to contribute voluntarily, there's no issue whatsoever with one. So you're okay. I'm sorry. It's shroris with a sin, right? They're literally paskening dina mamnis. Who is going to receive the money? So therefore, that's required. Three according to how many people are relying on him in this house. Okay, the Baltic. Why do you need it to be nigvis b'shloisha? Because tamchoi, when you're collecting food, you're not holding on to it and putting it into a warehouse and then deciding it. It's as it's taken in, it's being given out to the poor people that are there. So therefore, you might as well have three people gathering it because they have to decide all the time on the go who they're giving it to. And if they were collecting with two, and then someone wanted from them, they have to go down and find a third guy. This way, the whole team is a team of three. They could take care of the whole situation. Okay, weiter. So tamchui nigvus b'shloisha m'schalekas b'shloisha shegevuya v'chalukasha. Tamchui b'chol yoyim. Tamchui is a contribution that has to be made daily. Pupa is me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. Tamchui l'niyah oila. As we said earlier, a tamchui will be distributed to anyone who's poor, even if they're not from the city. Kupa is only l'niyah ha'ir. However, u'rishoyim b'nei ha'ir, the people of the city who are contributing to this fund have a right to divert those funds. Lasas kupa tamchui, the tamchui kupa, but not only that, even for municipal needs, they could divert tzedakah funds to fixing the roads. They're allowed to do that. Not only that, the Bnei Oyer could make up amongst themselves that we're no longer measuring things in pounds, we're measuring them in grams. And we're no longer measuring things in gallons, we're measuring things in liters. They also could decide how much gasoline should cost per gallon or per liter. And the vendors it will be imposed on the vendors to stick to those rates. They could even decide what minimum wages. So you see, it's not such overreach. And they even have a right to enforce the assessments that they make. Rashi's liknois esa oiver al kitzas devrayim lasiam midas din Torah. So they can mamish enforce it. A city has a right to enforce policies that they put into place. Omar Mar, ein notion sadaris al tzibur pachas b'shnayim minan amili. Where do you know this from? Omar Nachman Makra, because it says in the pasuk when we were talking about distributing the money, dispensing the money that was used for the Mishkan, it says veheim, not vahu, veheim yichos azal. Clearly, there has to be two people involved. You're not allowed to do sroris, meaning have someone force somebody else to pay. But lemaisa, they are trusted completely. How do you know they're trusted completely? Two brothers is like one person. In other words, as far as belief, they're like one person, because they could be in cahoots with each other. If you needed two people for Hemnusa, you would have required two strangers to do that. They're considered one. If someone doesn't have money to give tzedakah, the Gabbai has a right to take from his possession. That's why he needs two people. Even if it's Erev Shabbos, the guys, I'm busy now preparing for Shabbos, they still have a right to take a mashkin from him. That's all. It says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to pay back anybody who caused stress and pressure to Ma'aseh Kindlech, to Klal Yisrael. And who are these people who are applying the pressure? By Shmuel, by Marsa, the Shmei Rab, Afilu al Gaboy Tzedakah. A Gaboy Tzedakah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish for putting too much pressure. If you work for a tuition committee and you put too much pressure, Upakadi al Kalochto. Dr. Maloi Kasha. Ha Dahamid, Ha Deloy Hamid. If someone can't afford it and he's being over pressurized, it's very dangerous. There is an Upakadi al Kalochto. But Ha Deloy Hamid, what if it's a person who's a wealthy guy? The guy's wealthy, Ha Dehamid, if he's a wealthy guy, then they're allowed to put pressure because that's what their job is to do. Yeah, the Rava, like Rava, Achbel Rav Nosson Bar Ami, he forced Rav Nosson Bar Ami to pay the Shakum in the Arba Mei Zuzah L'Tzedakah. So if someone can afford it, there's no problem of L'Tzedakah. How do you know if someone can really afford it or not? I don't know. But Maskilon Yaziru Kizaya Harakia. The Maskilon, who are the Maskilon? The people who are with great seichel, they'll shine Kizaya Harakia. Zedain Shedon Din Emes Lamitai. This is a dain who paskined Din Emes Lamitai, which Tosha teaches is you could stick to the rules of the court. Two witnesses come, they say testimony, I'm allowed to accept the testimony, and then I can convict. But there's sometimes everything can be by the book, but it doesn't pass the sniff test. You smell the corruption, right? We're thinking of many of the court cases that were just done against Trump. Technically, they might fit in the box and they meet the threshold of what evidence is, but the whole thing stinks. That's not called emes lamita. So a dain shedon emes lamita is someone who has the backbone to reject what would be considered proper evidence because he knows it doesn't pass the smell test. That's someone who is mazirim k'zoy herakia. It's not. Moscow is a positive. The dain is very smart to see through this. No, because we don't call this call because they're overclear. They think that they're smarter. So it's we use it as as maybe a sarcastic compliment. Oh, you're smarter than us. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. Zeshadon din emes lamitai. Umatzdike Arabim, and those who are matzik Arabim, we'll see who that's referring to soon. Kekachavim. Chaim, you get the cross off all the boxes. You get the check of all the boxes in this pasuk. So today's your day. La'olam voed. They'll be like a chavim la'olam voed. Who are those? Elu gaboy tzedakah. B'masniza tana, but you get another check soon. B'masniza tana, b'maskil niyasu k'zoy rakia. Oh, very good. Thank you. Zeh dayin shedon din emes lamitai v'gabet tzedakah. So a gabet tzedakah is already a maskil niyazir k'zoy rakia because they have to figure out who needs and who doesn't, and that's a big avodah, right? Umatzdike Arabim kikachavim la'olam voed. So this today Chaim Fuhrer hits a home run. You check off all the boxes. You should be zoichi your yasir k'zeh and you can chavim la'olam voed. I hope we can a little bit bask in that shine, in that kedusha. Elu malamdi tinoikis. Kagoin man, Omer Rav, I need help with this. I'm not sure I understand this. Kagoin Rav Shmuel bar Shilas. The Rav Ashkechei, the Rav Shmuel bar Shilas. Rav saw that a koi beginsa. He was sitting in the garden relaxing, meaning he was off. I guess Cheder was off that day. Omer Lei, he asked him, Shavakli lem nusach, your ois malamid? Did you give up your job? And I don't understand this teretz. Omer Lei, hakleisher shnin t'loi chazali. The Bach sticks in over here. The Bach sticks in over here. Where's my Bach? You get my base over here. The Bach sticks in over here. Lav ha idna kleisher shnin l'chazali. Isn't it 13 years that you haven't seen me? And I haven't seen you in a while. I'm sorry? Oh, I haven't seen this garden for 13 years. Even now that I'm in the garden, man cup in do, man cup nachn chayde. Right. So wherever Chaim is, the cup is nachn chayde with the kindlech. And likdarten. So that's why he's kikachavim la'olam voed. Rabbanon. Now they say, why are they like kachavim? Because kachavim are only seen by night, but they're working day and night. But the kinder, you're working day and night. And the same thing the Gabbai Tzedakah. They work at night and they work by day. Why? Because at day they're running around collecting, and at night they're giving to the God so nobody should see. That's right. Zok the Gemara weiter. Rabbanon Mai, where do you see that Rabbanon also have the shine? Amarvina v'havav ketzeis hashemesh b'gvurasai, and Tosha says that there's different levels of shine. Ketzeis hashemesh b'gvurasai is the highest shine of the sun, and then there's maskil and yasir xerikia, and then there's kachavim, which are the lowest level of shine. Tanarabban gabet tzedakah ein rishoyin lifroish zeh mizeh. When there's two gabet tzedakah, we said they have to work together, right? They're not allowed to separate. So they can't say, okay, I got that side, you got that side, we'll go to a different directions. They have to be mamish together. Avo, what we could do is, if we're working on the same street, you could say, okay, you go to that side, you go to that side, as long as they're within sight of each other. What happens if you're a gabet tzedakah, and you found money? It's your money, it has nothing to do with your tzedakah. But if you put it in your pocket, now everyone's going to be choshev that you're stealing tzedakah money. So therefore, so don't put it into your pocket. Put it into tzedakah, so no one could claim that maybe you should have given it to me. Maybe it should be tzedakah. But when nobody sees, because technically it's yours. What happens if your friend owes you a mana and you are a gabet tzedakah, upari b'shuk, and someone came in the shuk and paid you back? So people think that they're giving you tzedakah, and really it's your money. So therefore, did you ever have such a problem? A gabet tzedakah who couldn't find anyone who was needy. The law is what you do is you have small money. You have to trade it up into big money. So you can't take the change and put in the dollars of your own, because people will be choshev you that you're cutting yourself a better deal. So you always have to do it for a third party. Same thing. The food they would sell to a third party. Did you ever find a customer to buy the food? You cannot count two bills at a time. You only have to count one bill at a time. Why? Because people are going to think that you're trying to hide money. So everything's got to be very, very transparent. Amar Abaye, Mereish Levi Yosef Mar Atzivi de Veknishta. Mar used to never even sit on the mats that were in the Besmedrash because they were paid for with public funds. But Kivan the Shamil Hadatanya, once he learned what we said earlier, that even though it's Moed Tzedakah, the city has a right to divert those funds to do anything. And if they decided they wanted to buy mats, they wanted to put a new carpet in the shul, they wanted to buy new chairs for the shul, so that's acceptable. Haba Yosef. Amar by Mareisha Avid Mar Trey Kisi. I used to have two separate collection cups. Chad Laniya de Alma, the Chad Laniya de Mas. One for anybody, all aniyim, and one only for aniyah. Ircha. Even the Shamil Law the Amar Le Shmuel Rav Tachliva Bar Avdimai. As soon as I heard what Shmuel Bar Tachliva Bar Avdimai said, and we'll see in a moment, Avid Chad Kisa, I mixed it all together. I didn't need to separate the funds. The Asni Allah, and I made a t'nai that I could divert those funds. There was a t'nai when he was collecting that he can give it to anybody he wants. Therefore, that's what Shmuel Bar Tachliva did. Once I heard that he did that, I did the same thing. I don't have to make a t'nai. Why? Anyone who's giving me money, right? People give money to Gedolim for tzedakah. If you're giving money to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, you're not saying, I don't know what you're giving it to. Whatever you want to give it to, I'm happy with, right? So the same thing, Rav Ashi knew whoever gave him money, let's read the kol the kaasi adai to the di us. He's giving to me, can he trust me to distribute it properly? Whatever I give it to, he's going to be happy with, and therefore I don't have to make any specific night. Okay, we'll stop here, Brother Hashem. We'll have a very safe trip. Should always go for simchas. Your Rebbeinu should help that the same way we're cutting here, you should have pizza derech, and you shouldn't leave any